Bend Around the Wind by Skylia. Chapter 23. Runaways. Tony thought Juyu looked young when he first saw her. Then she shapeshifted out of her green skin and, yeah, she looked even younger. In fact, she looked like a teenager, a tall high school wrestling team member teenager, but a teenager still. At least her sister B looked like she had to be at least in her 20s. You couldn't know for sure with either of them because, hello, shapeshifters. They could look like anyone, but that was his hunch. It made the way she acted even more strange. Even Tony was unnerved a bit, even if she did not try to attack him, or Loki, since that first time. That was a good sign, but Tony did not need to observe her much to know that she was not 100% okay in the head. He knew crazy. He'd been with Loki almost constantly for who knows how long. He recognized an unstable person when he saw one. The only problem was that he knew Loki's brand of crazy. He also knew that the god was a lot less unpredictable than a few months ago, and definitely not as destructive and homicidal as he was back on Earth. That was sort of a rock bottom period for Loki, and he definitely got better since. He knew nothing about B. So yeah, right now, Loki was still a little mad at him and suspicious of the girls. Juyu was quiet and suspicious too. B was simply weird and had a habit of staring holes into Loki whenever he was in sight, and Tony still had no idea what on earth he was doing. He definitely needed more information to properly handle the situation, but the fact that neither of the girls showed any sign of real hostility towards them in the past days was good at least. Juyu seemed more approachable and the only one who actually talked out of the two. So Tony decided to ask her the necessary questions. He let them just eat and rest for a few days out of civility, since they were in a pretty bad shape, and also to keep them out of Loki's sight. Just until Loki calmed down, like when his new vambraces were done. Then he couldn't delay the inevitable any longer, so when he caught her eating alone in the kitchen, he took the opportunity. "Hey there." "Hello," she greeted after swallowing. Tony grabbed a piece of fruit he still had no idea what was called, but didn't taste weird, and sat down in front of the girl. "I'm pretty sure you know what's coming," he said, then took a bite out of the fruit. "You have questions?" Tony hummed yes in response while chewing, then swallowed. "You see, I'm pretty sure I'm entitled to a few answers. Don't worry, no interrogation. It would just put my mind at ease, not to mention Loki would be less unpleasant if we knew more." "Your friend doesn't want us here," Juyu replied. "Loki is a jerk 9 out of 10 times. Don't expect that to change." "What do you want to know?" "This is going to come across quite insensitive, but what is wrong with your sister?" Juyu clenched her jaw and her face immediately became more closed off. "Loki told me she was dangerous," Tony started. "You were there. I know you heard him say it. Now, Loki may be a jerk, but he's anything but stupid, and I kind of trust his judgment when it comes to things like this. So how about you tell me?" It looked like she was not going to talk for a few moments, but then her shoulders slumped a bit and she sighed. "She's been fine. Up until a few years ago," Juyu said. "She's been taking care of me. I don't remember, but she told me our planet was struck by the war. Not the big war, but by those who wanted to get rid of the Skrulls in the system while the Empire fought its wars far away and wasn't able to help. I don't remember any of that. I know there were only Skrulls with us at the start, but then it was just the two of us. I was little and she took care of me." "What happened then?" "We got older and pretty and really good at shapeshifting. I'm sure I don't have to spell it out, what that means." She scowled quite deeply then. Looked like she would stab Tony with her fork if he forced her to say it, so Tony didn't push it. He could guess. He made a "go on" gesture. "She was fine. For a while. She became quiet, but she was still fine. But then..." "Then?" "She killed them," Juyu answered plainly. "The ones that owned the place we lived at. One night she shifted, grew some claws and fangs, blades, whatever she could think of, and killed them all." Juyu looked up at him, straight into his eyes, as if waiting for a reaction to that admission. Okay, only Tony was not in the position to judge someone who killed their jailers and torturers to escape. There was that whole kettle, pot, and throwing stones thing, and Tony was not a hypocrite. "We ran, but we were captured rather soon by some others. I don't think they knew where we came from. If they did, they probably would have killed her, but even if we're Skrulls, they never look at her and think that she's dangerous. Your friend is strange to say that only after such a short time." "He knows the advantages of being underestimated," Tony said. and he's very observant.
We were on a new place, but Bee was different. She didn't let them do anything, didn't let them touch her. Attacked the first chance she got. But there were too many of them, and that's when they put the collar on her. Then on me too, as a precaution maybe.
Juyu drank some water and poked at her food for a moment or two before continuing.
I had to work, all kinds of things, hard work, but nothing I couldn't handle. I didn't see Bee for a long time. When she was finally brought back to where I was, she was different. She was like she is now. She stopped speaking. First, I thought they did something to her to make her unable to speak, but that wasn't it. She just stopped. She only lets me touch her when she's hurt or weak. If anyone else tries... Well, you know. Sorry about the scratches.
So you don't know what they did to her while she was gone?
No, but it's not that hard to guess,
Juyu said, stabbing her food with her fork viciously.
They wanted to tame her, make her placid. Only it didn't work. My sister's not some beast to be chained and disciplined, and I'm sure she proved that to them. I'm sure they regretted even trying.
So they sold you?
Juyu nodded. They probably just wanted to get rid of her, but keeping us together was the only way to make Bee look manageable. Most scrolls fled the system when the war really started, ran to somewhere closer to the throne world in Drox. So owning one or two is rare. They probably wanted to make some money by selling her. Killing her would have been a waste, you see. That's how we ended up on Woblar, after we were sold like 5 times. She did not stop attacking whoever tried to lay a finger on her, so we were never in one place for long.
Tony fell silent, chewing on his fruit while he thought about what the girl just told him. It was not a nice story, but he did not expect a nice one. He guessed right about the traumatized part, the not speaking, the staring, and the aggressive reaction to touch were all quite telling. He could only hope that these obvious signs were not accompanied by other more dangerous things like delusions per se. He was no expert, of course, and it's not like he could call his therapist to ask for an opinion. So as long as she's left alone, she's not going to flip out and try murder us?
My sister is not well, but she's aware of the things around her, and she always listens carefully. She knows you helped us and has no reason to attack you if you do not try to hurt her. Or me.
I really want to be reassured by that, but I'm not yet convinced with the way she keeps staring at Loki the way she does.
Your friend feels strange.
Juyu frowned. Strange as in?
I don't know. He looks like you, but he's not like you.
Yeah, sure, he's a different race. I'm human, you see, mortal. Loki's not. He's pretty old and powerful. You might want to give your sister the heads up about that.
Oh, she knows that already. It's not just being able to change forms quickly that makes a good shapeshifter, but all the other things you're able to notice just by looking. Bee knows how dangerous your friend is, and so do I. He just feels cold. It's unpleasant.
Cold?
Colder than you,
Juyu said.
When we're in our original form, we are sensitive to that.
Right, you're reptilian. So you can sense infrared thermal radiation like snakes?
Infrared?
Juyu frowned in confusion. You can sense heat and cold. Tony clarified.
Yes, sort of. You're warm-blooded. He's not. He's only warm on the surface, not inside. We're not comfortable with cold things, not without shifting. Now it's all right. It's just strange.
That was interesting, to say the least. Tony suddenly had the urge to build an infrared camera just to check. Or he could ask Loki. Which was probably not that smart. He seemed to be quite easily angered when it came to personal crap. He was already pissed at Tony right now to begin with. Loki doesn't trust you, Tony said, but I'm willing to give you a chance. One chance only. So don't prove me wrong, alright? I'm sure we can reach the next system in relative peace. We're taking a risk here, Loki and I, to help you out. You surely know that. Juyu nodded, getting up.
Thank you, Stark.
You can call me Tony.
The girl frowned. Why?
'Cause that's my name.
I thought your name was Stark, she said.
Yeah, both are my name. Tony Stark.
Why do you have 2 names?
She asked, still frowning. Well, one is... You know what? Never mind. Stark is fine. We talk about it later. Juyu nodded again and left the kitchen. Tony finished his half-eaten fruit before heading out as well. Tony was tinkering away in his workshop, working on the crystalline wiring for his suit. He never really dug into piezoelectricity this much before, especially not with such a different form of electricity, so it was a challenge. He was just about to make the first tests when the alarms went off! His heart started pounding in his chest and he dropped everything to run to the bridge. He met Loki on his way there, who was looking at him in a very displeased manner. Tony got that, but he still hoped this had nothing to do with the girls. The second he was on the bridge and looked out of the viewport, he knew why the alarms blared. They were stopped. Who could do that? How? And why? One display was up, showing an incoming signal. Tony looked at Loki for a moment, but the god just gestured at him to get to it. So Tony put on the DNI and took a deep breath, as always, for the first rush of information. They were forcibly stopped, but he did not know how. The engines shut down when they were slowed down in order not to overheat, which was good, but still distressing. He finally saw who did the stopping then. Another ship. A big ship. A quite disconcertingly big ship. He took another breath before he opened up a channel for the incoming signal. The voice on the other end was gruff and stern, the kind of no-nonsense soldier tone Tony knew well. "This is Captain Derken from Filipino Space Patrol. You are traveling through a checkpoint zone. Identify yourself and contact your superior." Oh, shit. Shit. Shit! Tony looked at Loki again, who had his arms crossed and glared. No wonder. Tony's mind was racing, trying to think of anything. Maybe this was a random thing. Maybe they stopped every foreign ship. Just the cops pulling you over. He dealt with cops a million times. He could do this. "This is trading ship Iron Mage." Tony started with a calm tone, hopefully hiding all anxiety well. "From Cassiopeia," Loki whispered helpfully. Thank God they could only hear Tony through the DNI. "Cassiopeia," Tony finished. "And this is..."
Well, it's not like he actually had a superior.
"This is the commander." Yeah, that sounded official enough. Below the rank of captain, too. It should do. "Commander Stark, how can I help you?" "This is a routine inspection, Commander," came the reply. "We are searching for possible Skrull fugitives." That was when something very cold landed in Tony's stomach. "Turn off your defense systems so that we can scan your ship." Tony was staring at Loki while his mind came up with the only answer that could win them at least a few minutes. "Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'd like to ask you for a few minutes patience, though, because we had some issues with that system recently, so it needs to be turned off manually to be on the safe side." He did not really listen to what the captain answered, but luckily it was a positive response. He silenced the channel so that he couldn't be heard and turned fully to Loki. What do we do? What do we do?" He was not really good at hiding his panic in the moment.
"We could hand them over,"
Loki said. "No! They're just causing trouble! Loki, why are you so insistent about this?" "Because I want to help." "Nobody helped us! We didn't even give anyone the chance to help us. I listened to you and we didn't risk it, Loki. I have to do this, please." Normally, he was not one for pleading or begging, not over his dead body, but time was already running out, and Tony had absolutely no way to hide the girls. He didn't know what kind of scans they had. He didn't know anything. "If you have any way to help, we're gonna be in trouble anyway, even if we hand them over, so just... Is there anything you could do?" Loki started at him for another moment. Then he turned on his heel angrily and headed out. "Let them scan once I tell you," he called back. Tony did not sigh in relief just yet, only pulled up another display to see where Loki was going. They did not have much time. Surely the captain will get impatient very quickly. They could not delay them much further. Loki headed into the room they gave the girls. Once he entered, he swiftly closed the door and cut his palms open with the knife he pulled from his belt. While he painted, he started talking. "They're here for you. Unless you want to be caught and sent back, come here and stay close to me in silence until I tell you otherwise." His voice was stern and commanding. The girls looked at one another, but then Loki barked out a "No!" and they both went over to him without arguing. They still kept a foot distance so that they were not touching, but stayed close. Even Bee. She was even standing closer than Juyu. Loki turned towards them, his back to the door and the symbol he painted on it, and closed his eyes. "Now, Sark!" he said after a moment. Tony turned off their defense system while adrenaline pumped in his veins and opened up the channel to the patrol ship again. "Sorry for the wait. Manual controls are horrible. You're free to scan now." His voice came out quite natural. He congratulated himself, not like he felt like his reactor was going to fall out because of his pounding heart. Not at all. Stunning in process. What is your destination, Iron Mage? The captain asked. That Tony could answer at least, because he really did not have to tell the full truth. Bawakawa system is our last stop, and then we're heading back to Cassiopeia, he said. Even the thought of going back made him feel uneasy. Space Station BK-1 in Sector 56S has been critically damaged in an attack. I would suggest you avoid that area. I appreciate the information, Captain, Tony answered pleasantly. He glanced at the display that showed the girl's room. Loki was motionless, his back pressed to the wall and his eyes tightly shut. Tony was practically vibrating from tension, expecting the other ship to start firing or something at any moment. The scan is complete, Commander. No hostile presence has been detected, came the sound of the captain again, and Tony almost breathed out loudly in relief, but he managed to control himself. Thank you for your cooperation. My pleasure, Captain, Tony answered again as naturally as possible. Have a safe journey, Iron Mage. Thank you, and have a nice day. Tony managed to answer, even if he just wanted them gone already. The system showed that the hold the patrol ship had on the Iron Mage withdrew in the next moment. Then they were already turning and leaving, not wasting any time, thankfully. Tony waited another moment before he turned on the defense systems again while the engines restarted to get them back on their route. Loki, they're gone, he let the other know. Then he glanced at the display just in time to see Loki's knees buckle. Juyu stepped forward quickly to catch the god before he hit the floor. Stark! She yelled. Something cold gripped Tony's chest, and he was dashing out of the control room and towards them without bothering with removing the DNI. He heard Juyu yell again when he turned down on the right corridor, and he slammed the door open with force. Juyu was able to hold up Loki's weight, even if the god seemed to try very hard to get out of her grip. So Tony moved to get him out of her arms. Loki was dead pale and trembling. I got him, Stark said. I got him. Just leave now. He told them. He did not have to ask twice. They were out the door right away. Loki, what's wrong? What happened? He asked. The god was barely conscious. His eyes were glazed over. Complex spell, Loki answered. Then his brows furrowed seemingly in pain as his head tilted forward. Blood started dripping from his nose. What do I do? Tony asked as he tried to move him. The bed sounded like the right place to go. Loki was heavy, but Tony gritted his teeth and pulled him up as much as he could, taking his weight to stumble to the bed. It took some struggling, but he managed to get him down on it. Loki looked feverish, so Tony put a hand on his forehead. You're freezing cold, he said. I thought magic just tired you out, he said. Overstrain, Loki said quietly. You should have told me, Tony told him. He would have really liked to know this in advance, that tiring out from magic included this. But you're going to be fine, right? What do you need? What should I do? I need rest, Loki said. He really looked like he was about to pass out. Maybe it would have been the best. He looked as bad as that time they bled him out in the prison, only this time he looked even less lucid. Tony helped him move on the bed so that he was completely on it. Okay, rest fixes it. That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Rest then, he said. He was about to get up to let Loki pass out, but the god gripped his shirts and stopped him. What? Tony asked. Can't protect myself, Loki managed to say. He was really half unconscious at this point. His eyes were not even focused on Tony anymore. You're on the ship. You're safe, Tony told him, but Loki's grip did not loosen. His pale white fingers were twisted in Tony's shirt tightly, even if they were still trembling. Seeing Loki like this really brought back some unpleasant memories. But I guess it would make me feel better if I stayed here, Tony said, and climbed back onto the bed to sit down next to the god with his back to the wall. Loki's fingers relaxed a bit when he did, but did not let go completely. When Tony looked down at him again, his eyes were already closed and he was unconscious. Tony sighed and was not surprised when he felt a tingle of guilt crawling forward in his mind. He put his hand on Loki's forehead again, and while he was sweating, his skin was still ice cold. He managed to move around a bit to pull the covers out from under him without disturbing the sleeping god, who did not let go of him, even while being passed out. Stubborn. He was not sure if it would help, but he covered him up with a blanket. Then he pulled a pillow under his back, because the wall was digging into his spine. When he was done, he leaned back again. He could feel Loki's cold fingers even through his shirt. His skin was getting cooler from it right below the arc reactor, but he did not pry them off. It was only probably an hour later when Tony heard footsteps approaching them. Loki was still out, but at least did not feel as cold as before. It was a good sign. He looked up and blinked in surprise when he noticed Bee standing in the doorway. It was even more surprising that a tray was in one of her hands and 2 bottles of water in the other. She looked at him for a moment before silently walking to the nightstand on Loki's side of the bed. Tony tensed up a little from her proximity because he knew Loki would not like her being this close while he was unconscious. She did nothing, though, but put down the tray that had quite a lot of food on it and placed the water bottles next to it. She looked at Tony again, then turned to leave. "Your sister tells me you're a lot more aware than you look like," Tony said. He kept his voice down, even if he was sure that Loki would not wake up. The god did not even move since he passed out, hand still holding Tony's shirt right below the reactor, his head lying on the bed next to Tony's waist. Bee stopped in the doorway, not turning back, but obviously listening. "He did not have to do this. You know that," Tony said. "He did not have to hurt himself to hide you," he continued. "He only did it because I asked him to." And yeah, there was the guilt again, even if he did not know that helping would do this to Loki. It was still Tony who asked him. "I warned your sister, and I warn you too. You two have one chance only. So if you ever make me regret letting you set a foot on my ship, it won't be Loki you'll have to worry about. Are we clear?" Tony looked at her sternly when she finally turned back. He knew what expression he would see in the mirror right now, and he was absolutely sure that he made himself perfectly clear. It was the expression that promised cold-blooded revenge and destruction. He wanted to do the right thing, so he would help, but he was not stupid to blindly trust anyone, no matter how young or damaged they look, and Loki sure was a priority over them. Even this happening almost made him regret it. Bee looked at him for a moment, then raised her chin before lowering it again. It was a nod, and while her gaze still unnerved Tony, he knew she understood. She left then, her quiet footsteps slowly fading away into silence. Tony looked down at the sleeping god and slid down a little bit more on the bed to get comfortable. He did not sleep, though, just turned off the DNI and relaxed to the sound of Loki's even breathing.